Hi, and welcome to the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Tonight, Alix, Rowland, and I will be presenting this amazing book written by Master Shantideva, nearly 700, no, AD 700 are his dates. So that means this book is nearly 1,200 years old. And what does that tell us? It tells us that this book has some really incredible information because if it didn't, it wouldn't still be here for us to study and learn from 1,200 years later. I was just talking to Alix a few moments ago, and we were talking about past bestsellers. I can't even remember the bestsellers that I read maybe in the 80s or 90s. Those books didn't have the impact or the meaning of Master Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So you're in for a treat. Now you have to ask yourself, why did you come to this class in the first place? And I thought about that myself. Why am I here? Why am I interested in this class? Well, I have to tell you a little story. This morning, when I pulled the milk out of my refrigerator and I poured it into my coffee, instead of it being smooth and creamy, it curdled. And I looked at the expiration date on the carton, and it was past its due date. So that milk had gone bad. And believe it or not, we all have an expiration date too. Some of us, some of our expiration dates may be far in the future, but the bottom line is we don't know. We don't know what our expiration date is. And that's what brings us to something like this, an opportunity to learn something that can get us to, so we don't have to continue to suffer in this cycle of birth, living, death, birth, living, death. You know, another thing I like to think about is movies. You know, I like movies with heroes and heroines, and usually they start off with an antagonistic, cold hearted person that goes through these trials and troubles, and each of them have to work together to reach their goal, their problem solving together. And at the end, they've developed compassion for themselves and for the other person. And that compassion then has generated a love story between them. And that's another thing. We all have a deep need for compassion in our lives because without it, we're just dry, like dry wood, ready to be burned in a fire. So let's learn a little bit about who this Master Shantideva is, or why we're studying his book. So, as I mentioned, his dates are 700 AD. He was born as a privileged person, a privileged prince um, in the south. He was born in India, in Bodh close to where the Buddha became enlightened. His father was a king. His mother was actually an emanation of Vajrayogini. And he had a privileged life. And by the age of 6, he'd met a master teacher who taught him the practices of the secret teachings and the practice to meet Gentle Voice or Lord Manjushri in person. Taught him, sorry guys, taught him the practice that he could use so that he could meet Manjushri or Gentle Voice. And he worked hard at that. And he actually did come face to face with Manjushri, who then began teaching him. He practiced hard and he learned so much from him. And he continued on that way of life. So he really became the bodhisattva of the bodhisattvas. And when his father, the king, passed away, Master Shantideva had the good karma that everyone in the kingdom wanted him to become the next king. Master Shantideva agreed because bodhisattvas do that. They want to make people happy. And after a lot of pressure, he decided that yes, he agreed he would take over the seat of the king. But the night before his coronation, he had a dream. And in that dream, Gentle Voice came to him and said, he saw a Gentle Voice sitting on the throne of the king, and he heard him say, "It's not proper for you to sit here because I am your teacher and you're the student, and it's not proper for you to share the seat with me." So he understood what that meant. He has much more to learn. And so because he wanted to practice more of the Bodhisattva's way of life, he left the kingdom. He ran away and he ended up at Nalanda Monastery. And he there met amazing monks that had considerable wisdom and knowledge. But he continued getting teachings from gentle voice, Manjushri. He continued getting these teachings from Manjushri that allowed him to go deep into more studies and start writing books. But while he's in this monastery, living this quiet life of getting these secret teachings, the other monks in the monastery thought that he was not doing anything. They thought he was the person who had left the family life and had found this opportunity for the lay persons to support him. So they had a nickname for him. They called him Busuku, which means Mr. Three Thoughts. And the three thoughts are that he was there simply for eating, sleeping, and going to the bathroom. So they nicknamed him Busuku, which I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm trying. Anyway, they didn't really think much of him. They had no idea what he was really like on the inside. They didn't have the karma to see that he was really a very deep practitioner who studied with Manjushri. So they decided that he wasn't really a good fit for this monastery. So they devised a plan where he would decide himself that he would leave the monastery. And what the plan was that they would ask him to do a public presentation. And the public presentation would be including the whole assembly of monks at the monastery. And they asked him to teach a special class. And he said to them, why would you ask me? You know, I'm not capable of that. But they pressured him because they really wanted to humiliate him. So he finally agreed. And then the day came when he was to present his class. And they built a throne for him because in this tradition, the teacher is always setting higher than the students. So they built this incredibly high throne that was impossible for anyone to get on top of because there were no stairs, no ladder. But when Master Shantideva went to the throne, he just touched the side of it and all of a sudden he was on top of it. And none of them saw him do it and they couldn't understand how he got to the top of it. And then while he was up there, he asked them, would you like me to recite something that you've already heard? Or would you like me to recite something that you've never heard before? And they agreed that they would like to hear something that they'd never heard before. And that's when Master Shantideva began presenting the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. And as he presented it, they were just blown away. They never expected this from Busuku. They were just blown away and they listened intently. And as Master Shantideva got to midway in the 9th chapter of the guide, he started drifting, his body became lighter and lighter, and he started to rise up into the sky, floating up higher and higher. But he was still speaking and still teaching. And there were monks in the assembly that had the clairvoyance of hearing, that could still hear him. And as he drifted up higher in the sky, they could still hear his words. And some of the monks were also evolved enough that they could actually rise in the sky with him. And they tried to keep up with him because they were so engrossed in this new teaching that they wanted to hear all of it. But he disappeared so fast that they couldn't keep up with him. Well, there were two groups there, a group from Kashmir and a group from India. And the group from Kashmir believed that there were 9 chapters, and the group from India believed that there were 10 chapters. But together, in this assembly of monks, there were those that had the ability of total recall and those that had the clairvoyance of hearing. So they were able to reconstruct the entire teaching with that. So they were able to develop the book, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. But during the teachings, Master Shantideva had mentioned 2 other books that he had written, and they wanted to learn more. So even though he had disappeared, they wanted to find him so that they could learn the teaching of these other 2 books from him. So they sent some monks to look for him, and they found him in the south of India. And they asked him to please come back. And Master Shantideva said, no, I won't be coming back. But he gave them the more teaching on the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and also the compendiums on teachings. So they got that. And then he also told them that in the rafters of the room that he had been staying in, he had left a copy of the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way Life in very small print, and that he had also left another book there too. So they had the books and they were able to continue studying. Meanwhile, Master Shantideva, being the bodhisattva amongst bodhisattvas, used his clairvoyance to look for people who needed his help. And he began using it to travel around. So he found a kingdom that was having very hard times, and the people there were starving. And they decided that whoever could feed them would become their leader. When Master Shantideva got there, and he, out of one bowl, was able to feed all the people in that community. So he became their leader and he helped them and was able to teach them the guide to the Bodhisattva's life and to bring them into the Buddhist way of life so that they could improve their quality of their lives and reach ultimate goals. And he continued doing that. And the next job he found was, and there was another kingdom where someone was really antagonistic towards the Buddhists there, and he made a deal with the king of that country that he wanted the Buddhist people to come and join him in a debate, and whoever won the debate would have to just give up their religion, give up their practice, and join the other person's practice. But no one in the community wanted to do that. But then one of the king's servants had heard of this Master Shantideva and told him about the special things that he was able to do. Like when rain touched his body, it boiled away. It's just really strange things that were happening around this person. So they brought him to the community and he debated with this person. And because of all the practice that he had done and all the realizations he'd had, the other person, the non-Buddhist person, couldn't even debate with him. So he resorted to magic. And he brought up a Hindu world and in the sky, but Master Shantideva conquered that by bringing up a wind element to just blow it to pieces. And he was able to bring this wind that just blew everything around it to pieces and ripped the clothing off of people and everything. But he had thought ahead of time and had provided cloth and materials so that when the king and the queen came back, he was able to clothe them. And they asked him to stay and bring more people to the teachings. And that's the life of Master Shantideva. He frequently used his clairvoyance to see where people needed him. He also dressed frequently as a beggar, and no one suspected that he was this high practitioner who could teach these amazing things that could change our lives so that we didn't have suffering anymore. And what that means is the message that Master Shantideva is giving with that idea of dressing like a beggar, but having the mind of somebody so competent and powerful that can share these beautiful teachings is for ourselves. There's a quote there that people are like a mango fruit. They can look delicious and ripe on the outside, but have nothing ripe on the inside. Or they can look unripe on the outside and be really ripe and full of wisdom on the inside. And that's what Master Shantideva does. And so, what does that mean for us? It means that we really can't judge another person's mind. We're not capable of it. We don't have the ability. We don't have the seeds to judge another person. So, it's really important that we look at people and just consider they might be someone special like Master Shantideva. It can't hurt us to think that way. It can only help us. So the title of the book, as we move forward, is The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Master Shantideva. And we're going to share the screen here. And again, his dates are 700 AD. And Master, the Tibetan for that is, so we got that. So then the commentary that was based on Master Shantideva's book, The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Wife, is the entry point for the children of the victorious Buddhas. And this was written by Gelsup J. Dharma Rinchen. And his dates are 1364 to 1432. And Gelse in Tibetan means bodhisattva, and Juknak means children, or the bodhisattva, and that means children of the victor. So that's the other name. And the short name for the book of the Guide to the Bodhisattva, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, is called Chunjuk. Anyway, so let's just talk a little bit more about why we're here. We want to learn something. And so Master Shantideva has given us this excellent book for us to learn. So first of all, this book is a guide for us that's going to give us a way that we can plant the seeds to achieve compassion that we can grow not only for ourselves, but for other people as well. And with that compassion, we can actually find a way to love other people. I was talking to a neighbor the other day, and she had a problem. Someone was causing her some problems, and I was talking to her about it. And together we decided that we had compassion for that person because we understood that she wasn't causing this woman harm, but she was hurting herself. And it was nice to talk to the neighbor that way because I saw that she was caring enough about that neighbor to have compassion for her, to be willing to go over and to try to solve the problem with that neighbor instead of just being angry. So that's the kind of thing we want to learn to do, is not judge another person for the actions that they do, but to try to have compassion to see why they do things and to help them realize that there's another way. So there's a lot of selling points to this book. There's 10 chapters, and the first chapter is called The Benefits for the Wish for Enlightenment. And the Tibetan for that is Janchu Kin Ki Sim Pin Yu. And let me tell you a little bit about what that means. It's to sell you on the good things. When you take up this practice, good things come to you because your understanding of emptiness grows. And when you understand that emptiness, your life is empty of anything that's not coming from you, you're more cautious. And that brings us to the second chapter, which is purifying your bad deeds, which is Dikpa Shakpa in Tibetan. And to become a bodhisattva, we have to remove obstacles. There are obstacles, spiritual obstacles, that would prevent us from ever attaining the wish. So that's why this chapter is really important. We have to clean our mind of any obstacles so that we can work on our bodhicitta to develop our becoming a bodhisattva. And the next one is acquiring the wish for enlightenment. And we have the chapter on purifying our bad deeds because it's a preliminary to us actually acquiring the wish. When we acquire the wish, we first develop this mind of a bodhisattva by really noticing the suffering around us and that we all have an expiration date. And maybe there's a way that we can stop our suffering through seeds that we plant them differently. And that once we have this clear platform, we can actually use this method to begin planting those seeds and start accumulating the seeds that we need to actually acquire the wish for enlightenment. And that brings us to the fourth chapter, which is using carefulness. And this is really important. You know, I like to think about babies. Babies have to learn to crawl before they walk. They have to learn to walk even after they've been crawling. And you've seen a toddler. They stumble around, they can bump into things and hurt themselves. Well, it's the same thing with our newly aspired wish for enlightenment. We have to be very careful with it because we're thinking a new way that we've never thought before. We're actually feeling compassion for other people. Really, maybe in the past we would be angry or just think not to have sympathy for them. But we're doing something different. So we have to be careful with it. And that brings us to the next chapter, which is guarding our awareness. And this one I love. It's called Sheishen Sungwa in Tibetan. And I like to think of it as having a real bodyguard, a big bodyguard that's living in my mind. And they put an imaginary shock collar around me, like we put on our dogs. And when I start to go negative, they buzz me, and I can stop my actions before I do something. I repeat an unkindness. It's like in traffic, somebody cuts you off and you get angry and you want to respond in kind. You might want to, do the same gesture back to them or something. But that Sheishen bodyguard, that awareness buzzed me. And then if I still do it, then maybe I'll if I still want to do it and I'm bringing my hand up to give a nasty gesture, then maybe I'll get a little electric shock. And then I realize the emptiness of the action. If I react with unkindness now and repeat what the other driver had done, I'm just going to replant the seed and see them next week. And that's what this guardian awareness is all about, Sheishen. And the next chapter is, not the chapter 6 is the chapter on not getting angry. And it's similar to the Sheishen one, where you're wearing the dog collar. You want to react differently. You don't want to get the buzz from the Sheishen bodyguard. So in this one is, someone might yell at you and be really unfriendly and unkind to you, but you want to make a point of not treating them in the same way because you don't want to see them again in your future. It's a new way of behaving. You just want to freeze. I like to think of stop, drop, and roll. So I stop from getting angry if I remember the emptiness of it. And I remember I don't enjoy this. I don't want to see it again next week. And then I pretend like I shake it off. And then I do something different. And it's just how I do it, to not get angry. The 7th chapter is joyous effort. And this is one of my favorite things. You can use it anytime. I like to think about it when I go to work. When I go to work, I work in retail. I haven't always been this way, but now when I go to work, I really try to be happy. And I realize that because I'm in retail, I have the opportunity to meet a lot of people who are traveling. They come to our town to see beautiful mountains and beautiful scenery, and maybe I can be a part of their trip that they enjoyed. I like talking to them. I like hearing their story, why they're there. And I like to serve them. I like to help them find something that they might want to buy. And I really feel happy while I'm at work. And it's changed the whole environment. And there's other ways that you can have joyous effort. If you're a server in a restaurant, just think about the way that you're bringing something that someone needs to the table. They need food to live on, and you're providing that for them. So that's joyous effort. It's a great thing, and it's something that we need so that we can accumulate the goodness to have bodhicitta and to become a bodhisattva. And the Tibetan for joyous effort is Sundru Tinpa. The 8th chapter is meditative concentration. This is really important because the goal of a bodhisattva is to see emptiness directly. And the only way to see emptiness directly is if you have a good meditation practice. You have to have steady meditation practice that's at least an hour long, and it has to be regular. It has to be habitual. Like do it every single day, because this is the platform where you can see emptiness directly, where you can see directly how your world is empty of anything that's not coming from how you treated other people. And that in Tibetan is called Samten Tenpa. And next, chapter 9 is the chapter on wisdom. It's called Sherab Ki Lu. And what this wisdom is understanding emptiness. Understanding that the world isn't coming at you, but the world is coming from. And that is all of our goals. And finally, dedication. I'm the Tibetan. I'm not good at Tibetan. I'm terrible at it, but I'm trying. I'm planting seeds to get better. Go away, Lu. And that's the dedicate. When we've done something good, we want to dedicate it. It's like we put that good deed, those good seeds that we've just created in a bank account, in a Bodhisattva bank account or a storehouse. And that's a way that we can protect those seeds and dedicate them. We can dedicate them to other people. We can dedicate them to something that we want to achieve. We can dedicate them to seeing emptiness directly. We can dedicate them to having joyous effort at work. We can dedicate them to not getting angry. And we can dedicate them to all beings being happy and having the causes for happiness. So those are the 10 chapters in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And I encourage you to, I encourage you to take time, and if you can study this and learn it, to realize that you will reap the rewards. There are many to be had. And in the very next class, you'll learn more from Alix Rowland as she goes deeper into the practice and deeper into the meanings of it. So thank you for joining us this evening.
All right, I guess, should we turn off the recording in between each class? Okay.